They said I was mature enough to stay alone, that I'd be fine. Day 3, still alone.
My name is Ava. I'm 12. And this is a story that started with a torn $10 bill and ended with my parents losing the control they once thought they'd always have. It was snowing that morning, the kind of thick, silent snowfall that makes everything feel slower, heavier. My mom tossed a crumpled $10 bill into my hand like it was some kind of survival kit, then turned to my dad. "All set, babe. Let's go. Cruise ship departs at 4. "You'll be fine," she said to me with a beaming voice, like she was congratulating me for getting promoted to adulthood. "You're old enough now, Ava. There's food in the fridge and the Wi-Fi works. Just order delivery if you need anything. We trust you." Trust me? They left behind an unactivated credit card, a nearly empty refrigerator, and no plan for any adult to check on me. No backup neighbor, no instructions for what if the snow gets too deep, just a cheerful goodbye and a duffel bag rolling out the door. The door shut behind them. The wind howled through the gaps in the wooden frame like a whisper from the universe. You've been left behind. I stood there in the middle of our mountain cabin, staring at that $10 bill like it might turn into something else if I stared hard enough. Not anger, not even fear. It was something colder, like I had been quietly erased from their list of priorities. On day 1, I tried to be brave. I found half a loaf of bread and a quarter jar of peanut butter. I made a joke to myself. Ava's Winter Survival Challenge Day 1. Let's make this $10 stretch till spring. By day 3, the ramen was gone. The bottled water had started to frost at the edges. My phone battery was down to 12%. I pulled out an old sketchbook and wrote in block letters on the first blank page, "Evidence." Below that, I listed, alone, age 12, winter, no contact, $10, dead card. I wasn't even sure what I'd do with it, but something shifted in me the moment I saw those words in my handwriting. I wasn't just the good kid anymore. I was an observer, a recorder, a witness. I opened the camera on my phone. My face on the screen looked thinner than I remembered. My eyes were darker. "Day 3, I whispered. "Still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last real food yesterday. If someone is watching this, that means somebody finally asked what happened to me." I saved the clip. Part of me hoped no one would ever need to see it. Another part desperately wanted my mom to walk through the front door and find that video already playing on the TV. I thought about Lucas, this kid from school who always teased me about being a bookworm. I hovered over his name in my contacts. I wanted to text, "My parents left. I think they forgot I exist." Instead, I typed, "Do you like snow?" No reply. By day 5, I was sitting under the kitchen table wrapped in 2 blankets, chewing the last stale cookie in the cupboard. The fridge made a strange humming noise, almost like it was dying too. I didn't want pity, but I started to want someone, anyone, to know. Then, on the 7th morning, the doorbell rang. Out here in the mountains, no one uses the doorbell. Delivery people knock. Neighbors just walk in. A doorbell means something different. I peeked through the window. It was Miss Becker, my art teacher. Padded orange coat, snow still clinging to her boots, concern etched deep into her face. "Hi, Ava," she said gently. "I've been trying to reach your parents. They didn't answer. Can I come in for a minute?" I hesitated. I could have lied. I could have said, "They're out for errands." But my fingers let go of the doorknob on their own. I stepped back. Sure, I guess. The door opened. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just letting an adult into the cabin. I was letting the truth out. Miss Becker stepped into the cabin and paused. The warmth from outside her coat clashed with the freezing air inside. Her eyes scanned the room, the sink full of dirty dishes, the half-empty pantry, the refrigerator humming like a broken whisper. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't have to. "Are your parents just out?" she asked softly, still looking around like she expected someone to walk in from another room. I shook my head. "They're on a cruise," I said. "The Caribbean, for a month." Her brows shot up. "A month?" Her voice didn't hide the disbelief. "And who's staying with you?" I hesitated. This was the line, the point where I could either protect my parents or finally say what I had been whispering to the walls at night. "Just me," I said quietly. "They said I'm old enough." She sat down slowly at the table, like someone lowering themselves onto thin ice. "Ava," she said gently, "how long have you been alone?" "Almost a week." "And do you have enough food? Money?" I let out a sound that was meant to be a laugh, but it came out cracked, bitter. "They gave me a credit card, but it doesn't work, and $10, that's all." She stared at me, not like a teacher watching a student who forgot their homework, but like someone watching a fire smolder under the floorboards. "This isn't okay," she said, her voice firm. "You know that, right?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to act like I was unfazed, but the truth was right there, in the corner of the table where my sketchbook still sat open. The page where I had written evidence stared back at me like it was calling out. "I've been hungry," I admitted, "and scared, so I started writing it down, just in case." "Just in case what?" she asked. "In case something happens to me," I whispered, "so nobody can pretend they didn't know." Silence filled the room like a fog, but for once someone wasn't ignoring it. Miss Becker leaned forward, her expression no longer just concerned, it was focused. "Ava," she said slowly, "leaving a 12-year-old alone in the mountains in winter without food or contact, that's not just irresponsible, that's neglect, that's illegal." My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Neglect, illegal, words I'd only ever heard on TV. Suddenly, this wasn't just about being left behind. It was about something bigger, something real. "What happens if someone finds out?" she asked. "Then someone does something. Child Protective Services gets involved. Your parents might be investigated." There it was, the word that had been floating around in the back of my mind all week. Consequences. She didn't rush to tell me it would be okay. She didn't try to soften the blow. Instead, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Do you want help? Real help, the kind that makes sure this doesn't happen again." I looked at my hands, frostbitten fingertips, fingernails bitten short. I thought about the video on my phone, the one where I said, "If someone's watching this." "Yes," I said. "I want them to see what they did. I want them to know what it's like to lose control." She nodded. "First, we keep you safe. Then, we tell your story to the people who need to hear it." She stepped into the hallway to make a call. I could hear her voice, low and firm, drifting back to me. Left alone, 12 years old, no supervision, no food. I stared at my notebook. For days, it had been a secret, a coping mechanism. Now it felt like a weapon, a defense, a case file. 10 minutes later, Miss Becker came back into the room. Her coat was still zipped up, but her expression had shifted from concern to action. "I spoke to Mr. Mason, your neighbor. He's coming over, and Child Protective Services is sending someone too. But first," she motioned toward the kitchen, "we're going to feed you." The word feed landed in my chest like warmth in frozen veins. A knock came at the door, not urgent but gentle. When I opened it, there stood Mr. Mason, our older neighbor. He looked at me with eyes that weren't angry, just deeply sad. "Oh, Ava," he said, "why didn't you come to me sooner?" "Because I didn't want to look weak. They always said I'm mature, that I can handle things. I thought needing help meant proving them wrong." He exchanged a glance with Miss Becker. Then he looked at me. "Asking for help doesn't make you weak," he said. "Sometimes it's the only way to make adults face what they've done." That sentence hit something deep inside me, like a bell ringing in my ribs. Make adults face what they've done. That afternoon, we sat around the table while I told him everything. The torn $10 bill, the silent nights, the unopened card, the snow piling up outside while my body got weaker. And in that moment, for the first time since the door closed behind my parents, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like someone worth listening to. I always thought that when adults finally noticed something was wrong, they'd come rushing in like heroes, flashing lights, apologies, promises. But the truth is quieter. It starts with paper. After we ate, real food, not just scraps, Miss Becker handed me a pen. "Keep writing," she said. "Everything you remember. Dates, feelings, what you ate, what you didn't." So I flipped to a new page in my notebook and wrote, Day 7, first warm meal. Not from them, from strangers who actually saw me. It was strange calling them strangers. Miss Becker, my art teacher, Mr. Mason, our neighbor, they had been around for years, but until today, I was invisible to them. Just another quiet kid whose parents always said, "Oh, she's so mature for her age." That phrase made me sick now. Around 4 p.m., the caseworker arrived. She was a short woman with kind eyes and a clipboard that looked heavier than it should have been. "Ava?" she asked. "I'm Elise. Can we talk for a bit?" She walked through the cabin slowly, stopping at every detail. The empty fridge, the credit card on the counter, the trash bin that barely had anything in it. Her eyes lingered on my notebook. "How long have your parents been gone?" 7 days, I answered. "And they planned to be gone for a month. Who checks in on you?" "No one, not until today." "Did they call?" I opened my phone and showed her the only message since they left, a selfie from the cruise ship dock with the caption, "Finally free." "Free from what?" she asked. I looked down. "From me, I guess." She wrote something. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. Then she asked, "Would you like to say anything directly to them? We sometimes include statements from kids in our reports." My throat tightened, but then I felt the weight of my notebook on my lap, and something inside me pushed back. "Yes," I said. "I want them to know what it felt like." She handed me a blank sheet of paper. I started writing. "You said I was mature enough to stay home alone, but being mature doesn't mean I don't get hungry. It doesn't mean I don't get scared. You bragged to everyone about how independent I was, but you didn't see the crumbs I was counting just to make it through the day. By the time you read this, other adults will have already seen what you did. They'll see the fridge, the card, the silence. If there are consequences, they're not because I betrayed you. They're because you left me." When I was done, I folded the letter and handed it over. "I want them to read that first," I said, "before they say anything." That night, I stayed at Mr. Mason's house. His place smelled like firewood and fresh laundry. The fridge was full. He let me pick what we'd cook together. Pasta, sauce, apples, real food. Miss Becker stayed while we cooked. She brought reusable bags filled with groceries and kept the receipts. "Keep these in your notebook," she told me. "It proves what wasn't here before today." I placed them right behind the page titled Evidence. While water boiled and garlic sizzled, the caseworker sat at the kitchen table with her tablet open. "Can you show me the last message from your mom again?" she asked. I showed her the cruise selfie. She studied it, then asked gently, "Do you want to record something?" I nodded. I set up my phone and hit record. "This is what the cabin looked like when they finally noticed I was alone," I said. The camera moved across the empty shelves, the forgotten mail, the chair where the caseworker's bag sat. "This is what my parents will come home to. This is what they'll see instead of souvenirs and stories. This is what happens when you choose freedom over your own kid." That night, in a bed that wasn't mine but felt warmer than anything in the past week, I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "They're coming home, but it won't be the reunion they're expecting, because this time I wasn't waiting to be rescued. I was waiting to be seen. And for the first time in my life, grown-ups were finally paying attention." Here is Chapter 4, The Confrontation, the moment Ava's parents return and everything she's recorded becomes undeniable truth. The tone remains sharp, emotional, and cinematic, exactly in line with your still Waters Payback. 2 days passed like a countdown ticking inside my chest. I didn't sleep much, not because I was afraid anymore, but because I was rehearsing everything I wasn't going to let them twist. Then, Miss Elise, the caseworker, pulled me out of my art class with a clipboard and a grim look. "They've moved their flight," she said. "They'll be home in 3 days, not 3 weeks." Of course they did. Not because they missed me, because someone told them they might lose control over me. "What happens when they get here?" I asked. "We'll meet them at the cabin," she said. "I'll be there, a supervisor from the department too. Miss Becker agreed to join as a school representative. And you can be part of the meeting if you feel safe." I looked out the window. Snow melted into cold puddles now. The white world I'd been abandoned in was thinning, but the silence between me and my parents had never been thicker. "No," I said. "I don't want to hide. I want them to see me, and I want them to see what they left behind." She nodded. "Then we'll make sure you have a voice in that room." The day they came home, the cabin felt like a courtroom. The refrigerator had been restocked, my notebook lay open on the table beside the credit card, and a printed transcript of my video logs. The first clip, Day 3, Still Alone, was paused on my phone screen, frozen on my tired face. "Are you sure you want that playing when they walk in?" Miss Elise asked. "Yes," I said. She always said stories don't matter unless there's proof. This is my proof. Mr. Mason stood quietly by the window. Miss Becker leaned against the counter, arms folded. The CPS supervisor, Miss Torres, flipped through a thick manila file at the table. And then the sound of tires on gravel, car doors slammed, muffled laughter, rolling suitcases. The doorknob turned. My breath stopped. The door opened. My mom stepped in first, tan, relaxed, designer sunglasses pushed on top of her head like this was just another day. My dad followed, juggling bags mid-conversation. They both stopped. Their eyes swept the room like they'd walked into the wrong house. "What is this?" my mom snapped, dropping her suitcase handle. "What are all of you doing in my kitchen?" The CPS supervisor stood up calmly. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Carter, I'm Miss Torres with Child Protective Services. Please take a seat. We need to discuss your daughter's welfare." My mother didn't sit. Her gaze zeroed in on me like a laser. "Ava, what did you tell them?" For a second, the old instinct kicked in. Shrink, smooth it over, apologize. But then I saw the video screen glowing beside me, my voice from 5 days ago whispering, "If someone is watching this." I stood taller. "I told them what happened," I said. "I told them the truth." My dad tried to chuckle. "There's clearly been a misunderstanding. We left her with food, with money, a credit card. She's a very capable 12-year-old. Kids these days—" Miss Torres interrupted, sliding a paper across the table. "This is your card's activation record. It was never set up with a PIN. It was declined multiple times when Ava tried to use it." She tapped another page. "These are photos taken of your refrigerator and pantry 1 week into your trip. The amount of food left was not sufficient for an unsupervised minor. Several items were expired." My mom finally sat down, not out of agreement, but from the weight of the words crashing around her. "Expired doesn't mean starving. We were gone a week, that's all. We checked in." Miss Torres raised another page. "These are your message and call logs. 1 airport photo, 1 cruise selfie. No direct calls, no check-ins." My dad paled. My mom stared, then pointed at me. "We trusted you, Ava. We gave you space. You're exaggerating." "No," I said softly. "You trusted me to survive. You didn't trust yourselves to be parents." Miss Becker stepped forward, her voice sharp now. She was dizzy from hunger when we found her. She didn't want to ask for help because she thought needing anything would disappoint you. Do you realize what kind of damage that does to a child? My mom's voice dropped to a hiss. You're blowing this out of proportion. She likes to write dramatic things. She probably made it sound worse than it was. Miss Torres turned to Ava. Ava, are you comfortable showing them your video? My hand trembled, but I tapped play. Day 3, my past self whispered through the phone. I'm still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last real food yesterday. If someone is watching this, someone finally asked what happened to me. The camera panned the kitchen, empty shelves, an unopened card, silence so loud it hurt. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad looked down like the floor had betrayed him. This can't be happening. No, this isn't happening. But it was, and this time she couldn't laugh it off or change the subject. She couldn't outrun this with a plane ticket or a fake smile. Miss Torres folded her hands. Based on our investigation, school reports, neighbor statements, and Ava's own documentation, we're issuing an emergency order. Effective immediately, Ava will not return to unsupervised care with either of you until a full hearing is held. My mom stood up so fast her chair screeched. You can't take my daughter over a misunderstanding. We needed a break. Do you know how hard we work? I looked her in the eyes. I know, I said. You tell everyone how hard you work, your coworkers, your friends, social media. But when I was cold, hungry, and scared, you told no one where I was. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Tears welled up. We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you'd be fine. Adults need space too. I remembered the words she used every time I messed up, every time I forgot something or made a mistake. So I gave them back to her. You always said actions have consequences. Well, this is what your choice looks like. The room fell silent. My mom looked like the floor had dropped beneath her. My dad held the back of his chair like it might save him. Miss Torres laid the final paper on the table. For the duration of this investigation, Ava will remain in temporary placement with Mr. Mason. You will be notified of the court date. Until then, you are not to contact her directly. My mom's voice cracked. You're taking her side over ours? No, I said. They're finally taking my side. We left the house before they did. The same front porch where I had once watched their car roll away was now the place I walked away from. This time, not in silence, but surrounded by adults who had finally heard me. Inside, I could still hear my mom crying, my dad's voice trying to soothe her with words that sounded hollow, even from a distance. And me? I carried nothing but a small bag, my notebook, and proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. Weeks later, I sat in a courtroom that smelt like paper and old carpet. The judge's voice echoed off wooden walls as people said words like protective custody, parental neglect, and supervised visitation. My parents sat at a long table across from me, smaller than I remembered them. My mother's hands were shaking. My dad didn't look up once. They didn't go to jail. There were no handcuffs, no shouting, no dramatic breakdown. But something worse happened. They lost the automatic right to be part of my life. The judge ordered parenting classes, counseling, and until further notice, no unsupervised contact. I spent that summer with Mr. Mason. It should have felt strange. A widowed neighbor, an old wooden house that creaked when the wind blew, but instead, it felt like healing. He let me pick the groceries. We cooked meals together, and at night, when the house was quiet, he didn't just say, "Are you okay?" He sat beside me and listened when I said no. One afternoon, while stirring a pot of tomato soup, he said, "You know, Ava, what you did, that was brave." I shrugged. I didn't feel brave. I just didn't want to disappear. He nodded slowly. Bravery usually starts there. My mom sends messages now, long paragraphs about how she's changed, about how she's sorry, that she wants things to go back to normal. But I don't even know what that word means anymore. What's normal supposed to look like after you've been left behind with $10 and a dead credit card? After you've had to document your own neglect just to be believed? I'm not saying I'll never speak to her again. I'm saying I'll never forget. And forgetting is what she's hoping for. One evening, I found myself back in my room for the first time since everything happened. The posters on the wall hadn't changed. The same stuffed animal still sat on my pillow. The window still looked out onto the same snowy trees. But I wasn't the same. I opened my notebook, flipped to the final page, and wrote, "This is where it started. The silence, the hunger, the proof. But this isn't where it ends." Then I recorded one last video. I don't even know what day it is anymore, I said to the camera. But I'm not alone, I'm not afraid, and I'm not invisible. I looked directly into the lens. If you're my mom watching this, you once told me that choices have consequences. You said that every time I messed up. This time, it was your choice, and I'm the one living through the consequence. I stopped the recording. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just existed. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. So now I ask you, if you were 12, left behind in a cabin in the snow with no plan, no food, no contact, would you stay quiet to protect their reputation? Or would you do what I did and let the truth become the weapon they never saw coming? Because sometimes justice doesn't come with a bang. Sometimes it comes in the form of a notebook, a voice, and a girl who stopped waiting to be rescued and chose to speak. If this story moved something in you, if it made you think about the lines between trust and neglect, between growing up and being abandoned, then don't keep it to yourself. There are more stories like Ava's, more voices waiting to be heard. Subscribe to Still Waters Payback for real stories told with truth, fire, and the courage to say, "This is what they did, and this is how I took my power back." Leave a comment if you've ever felt invisible or if you finally decided not to be. Turn on notifications because the next story might just be the one that changes everything.